Hey guys, in this video I'll show you how to max out the capacity of your pistol magazine. So this is the context we're dealing with. Semi-automatic pistol magazines. It can apply to you. The magazines here on display are for an Armscore 1911 A2, which is similar to the Para-Ordnance P18 or the double-stack 1911 high-capacity pistols. This one is chambered in 9mm, so we have a standard magazine here on the left, which holds 17 rounds. How do we increase the capacity of this? Well, by installing a base pad, a +2 base pad. We were able to increase capacity from 17 to 19. So I used the standard follower end spring and it increased to 19. Now here in the third, we have a 20 round magazine. So let me break it down for you. When maxing out the capacity of your magazine, whether it be from another maker, it could be a CZ75, could be a Beretta 92, it could be a Tanfoglio, a Taurus, a Browning high power, you can increase the capacity by modifying 3 variables. So what are those three variables? The first variable which I would recommend would be the base pad. The base pad is pretty simple. It's pretty much drop-in. You can check out my video on how to install it and take it apart. For very safe. Once you install it, you get an easy +2 capacity. I've had no problems so far with it. Let's check if this is safe. Alright. It's safe. Now this magazine, when installing the base pad, I got no problems with it feeding. We got an empty magazine here. Insert it. The slide locks back on an empty magazine. Perfect, no problems. Now, for those who want to go the distance and add even more capacity, the next 2 variables which you can modify aside from the base pad would be the spring and the follower. So I'm gonna give you a close-up of this one on the third mag. This has the base pad on and a modified spring and follower. So the modified spring and follower on the right that you see, I got this from Metrillo Gun Corporation. I'll put a link in the description. It's a flat magazine follower, which allowed me to have +1 capacity. At the same time, it also has a different type of spring. You see, this spring is a little longer, and its coils are a little different from the stock springs. This is actually very important. That has a factor, and it's modified to fit that flat follower. So by modifying the spring and the follower, I was able to increase the capacity from 17 to 19 to 20. Now please take note, this modification is not for everybody. I wouldn't recommend it just to anybody for a few reasons. Well, one would be the cost. the spring alone and the follower from Metrillo, the custom gunsmith where I got it from, it practically costs as much as a magazine already. It cost me around 1,400 pesos, and a mag costs about 1,600. So imagine that. In dollars, you're looking at around $30 or around that price, a little more. And it only adds +1 capacity. Another downside when installing this empty magazine, the slide will not lock back on an empty magazine. You can manually lock it yourself if you absolutely have to, but that's just a note. Especially for some people, locking back the slide on the last round might be an important factor that you might want to consider. In IDPA, there are some courses which require you to fire until the slide is locked back. So having this +1 follower and spring combination would be out of the question. In conclusion, my recommendations, if you would want to max out your magazine capacity given your stock magazine, I would recommend going for the +2 base pad as the first option. It's practical. This one cost me around 550 pesos, which is about it's around $10 for international viewers. They make these for not just for the para ordnance type of double stack 1911s or the arms core ones. In the USA, you'd probably be looking at Rock Island Armory for their high cap 1911s. They also make these for Beretta, Taurus, Sig Sauer, Browning, Jericho 941, the Rugers, CZ75s. They make for Glocks also. They make these base pads for a lot of type of pistols. Again, they're reliable. They're pretty much drop in. Please check out my video on how to install them and take them apart. No problems with feeding. No problems with locking the slide back on an empty magazine. No problem there. No problem. Now, for people who just can't get enough, who want to go the distance, I would recommend you look for the custom magazine followers and springs. Normally, these custom magazine followers would require a special spring in tandem to get the most out of them. Case in point, here's an example of a magazine. It was once a stock magazine. I cut down the follower of this, and I trimmed down the spring also. Let me show you. Right, so got the base pad. I trimmed down the spring of this. Notice how much shorter it is compared. I cut down about 2 coils. I also cut down the follower and made it shorter over there compared to the stock one. Cut down the edges. Now, increasing your capacity isn't that simple. Even after cutting down the follower and cutting down the spring, I was still only able to achieve a 19 round capacity with this magazine. Basically the same as this one. And the problem was spring tension got weak, and now this can't even lock back the slide on an empty round. So this video shows you how to push the limits, but it also shows you what you can and can't do. Now you can increase your capacity, but you can't do it just like that. So this is just a reference for those people who would wanna experiment and make their own custom magazine modifications. So as I said, from stock magazine I did my own modifications in it, cut down the follower, cut down the spring, still could only load 19 rounds, even with a stock follower. Can't even lock back the slide anymore. So be careful with what you modify. All the way back, nothing, all the way back, so it won't lock. So I hope this video helped. Hope it gave you some ideas on how to increase your magazine capacity and how to max it out. Doesn't matter if your magazine doesn't look like this one, if it's shorter or longer. Just remember the three variables which you can modify. Your base pad, which I would recommend, and if you want to go the distance, the magazine follower and magazine spring, which you can modify as well.